Welcome to Sales Velocity TV, where we pull back the curtain on how the top businesses in the world sell more with less resistance. Bringing over 50 plus years of combined sales experience and over 100 million in revenue generated, please welcome the hosts of Sales Velocity TV and two incredibly entertaining gentlemen, Andrew Cass and Aaron Parkinson.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Sales Velocity TV. I'm Andrew, that's Aaron, and we're talking unique selling proposition today. One of my favorite topics, by the way. Aaron, how are you?
I'm doing amazing, man. How was your week?
Week was good. We're running a little bit late today. If you're watching by live stream, we got a little jammed up with tech. Imagine that. Imagine tech jamming us up once again. As much as we love it, it sometimes just doesn't do what it's supposed to do, and it jammed me up a little bit here today. So for those of you watching live, apologize for the lateness, but if you're listening, that won't matter even one bit.
Listen, if you're tech is great because it automates so many things and it makes things so much more efficient. And we talk about it all the time. You can take the job of 5 people and consolidate it down to 1. You can set yourself free. But listen, we all go through tech pain.
Yes,
you're going to go through it. You can freak out about it. I was just telling you right before we got on this call, this show today.
This is a good one.
That one of my clients losing their mind this morning, rightfully so. We started a new campaign on Bing for them with a $20 a day ad budget. And randomly, 2 days ago, the ad budget went up to $7,000 a day.
Is that
so
right?
in 2 days, they spent $14,000 and freaking out.
But the big question is, how are the conversions?
That's what I said. How many leads did we get?
Did like it work, or was it like, okay, this was a big debacle?
That's how my brain works.
Because I mean, you're like, of course you're pissed, but you're like, did we make like a gazillion more sales? I mean, could there be an upside to this, right?
Exactly.
I'm sure you were thinking that.
We checked the change log, and the change isn't from any of us, not from the client. It says unknown. So we'll go to Microsoft and we'll say, hey, you had a glitch. Give them their money back. End of story.
Yep.
But in this world that we're in now, you need to have tech. But if you're saying to yourself, oh my God, I don't want to have tech because there's going to be problems, let me burst your bubble. You're going to have problems, and it's worth it. That's the reality.
Listen, it's a double-edged sword. We know this. Tech gets better and better. However, we get more and more of it. So sometimes I always like to say it can become like kryptonite if we're not careful, where it bogs us down more than builds us up. But there will always be the little tech issues. And anyways, I digress. So listen, unique selling proposition. Here's my question to the watchers and listeners. Is if somebody said, what is it that makes you and your business different than all the other choices I have out there, what would you say? And that question, like when I got into the world of direct response marketing, having left the financial services business, Aaron, probably pushing 20 some odd years now, that was the question. I remember the question when I was studying direct response marketing. I think it was Dan Kennedy who phrased it in a way, something along the lines of, what would make me choose you and your business versus any and all other options available to me at this time? And it was like, wow, that's a really powerful question. If you have an answer to it, it's kind of like, what's that saying? It's your elevator pitch, if you will, right? That's your that's your thing. And we're going to talk about that today is unique selling proposition. A lot of times when business owners get stuck at a certain growth phase, they're not connecting with their market. Their ads aren't working well. The branding is just kind of, normally it's time to go back to the drawing board on unique selling proposition and really figuring out what makes us different. What's our differentiator? What is it that makes us stand out? Because today you have a couple seconds to stand out and make an impact, and that's unique selling proposition. So that's the topic of today, and it's a good one.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, from what I can see in the marketplace, the uniqueness of a product or service is becoming less and less and less a reality. Like when I'm talking about,
you mean you're seeing a lot of plain vanilla stuff out there? Do you feel?
No, I don't mean of how it's presented, although that's the issue too. But like, when was the last time you saw a new product or a new service where you went, that's completely different? I've never seen that thing.
It happens, man. It happens sometimes. It just doesn't happen a lot.
I feel like it happens less and less and less. Like if we look at your X3 bar, for example.
The same thing came to mind with me. Like when we talk about that piece of equipment, it was like that thing just was in a league of its own.
But you know what?
Perfect
I disagree
example.
with you. I've seen a million band systems where I was like, you were like, hey, I got this band system. And I was like, meh, so what?
However, if you know the story behind it, right? Because we'll go there. Unique selling proposition is the door opener. But the story and the support, the research, the science, whatever it may be, is what keeps the door open.
Right. And for me, when I actually dug into it and I read the story and I read the science, I was like, cool, and we'll talk about that in a second. But when I actually look at it physically, I was like, what's the USP of this thing? What makes it different than every other band thing that's out there? I'm looking at it on my floor. That's why I'm turned. And there was two things. One was the big heavy metal plate.
There you go.
That you stand on, right?
Yeah.
Because I didn't like
stuff
bands
wrapped around your ankles and all weird.
Standing on them, and they're
Exactly.
hitting your knees all the time and stupid stuff.
Exactly.
And I didn't like that I had these like weird little handle grips that were always cheap and crappy. And this came with like a legitimate full
titanium Olympic bar, right?
Yeah.
Like that's how you get the loads.
Exactly, and that's what I'm used to lifting with. So I was like, this is like, it's got a heavy base, it's got an Olympic bar. Already it's differentiated itself. And then when you combined it with the story and the science, which is a little bit of what we'll talk about, I was like, okay, I get it. Now I get why
I see what makes it unique.
That's right.
And
exactly.
That's where we're going today. So if you can't answer this, what is it that makes us unique or makes me unique or makes our service unique? Then it's going to be kind of an uphill battle all the time when it comes to marketing. It's tough to put ad spend behind that, Aaron, right?
Right.
Like it's tough to put ad spend behind something that isn't a differentiator. It's brutal.
It's not intriguing. It's a Me Too product.
Yep.
Nobody cares. And then you know what ends up happening, and we'll talk about this in point 3. What ends up happening is because you're not really special, because there's no unique selling proposition, you got to compete on price. And now you're in a race to the bottom, competing with every manufacturer in China. And guess what? You'll lose.
Unless you're Amazon, you'll lose, right?
You'll lose, right?
So let's break it down. So what's the process? What's the method? And I want to give an example to frame this before you get into your points. The best example that I was taught early on was Domino's Pizza. I should have even said it because I wanted you to guess, but I do this from stage all the time. I do their USP, and I said, does anybody know what this company is? And if you remember back in, I want to say 80s, they were, a lot of people don't know the story, huge company today, obviously. You see their commercials on all sports channels, right?
Yep.
Is they were a struggling private pizza company, I don't know how many decades ago, and they shifted into fresh hot pizza delivered in 30 minutes or less guaranteed. And that USP, that unique selling proposition, took them to a $200 million plus company, publicly traded, and huge success story. Because they found, and what we're going to talk about here today, they found holes in the marketplace, the pizza marketplace, which you'll talk about in a second. They identified those holes, and that solution shifted into fresh, hot, 30 minutes or less. Now, nothing about the best, the gourmet, the greatest sauce, the cheese. Fresh, hot, fast. Now, the real funny story behind this, Aaron, which I think you've heard me say, I've told this story from stage so many times over the last 2 decades, is that the reason that the company did that is because the 2 owners of the company at the time were big pot smokers.
Yeah,
and they were like college kids. And they were just starving and blazed up and couldn't drive. So they were frustrated with how long it took for delivery and how it wouldn't come fresh. And they went and built a solution to their, I guess,
keyword problem.
Marijuana issues, right?
Keyword problem, which we're going to talk about.
They solved the big problem. I don't know how.
And here's the thing: there's that old saying that it's sex and pizza. Right? Even bad sex or bad pizza is still good.
Now that could be an episode.
It's the truth, right? Like even bad pizza, you're still going to eat it, right? So
I had not ever heard anybody put those 2 things that way. But thank you for doing that. And I mean,
am I wrong? Would you turn down sex or pizza?
I don't think you're wrong, man.
Right? That's the reality.
But
right?
The pizza thing, I mean, listen. The last thing I'll say is, my kids love that Domino's pizza. It looks so amazing on TV. And then when it gets delivered, it is just so bad. I hate to say it. It's just not that good. But they never said it was good. They said fast and hot.
They didn't focus on we are organic. We have the best ingredients.
We've been doing this for 30 years. Mama made this sauce in the 70s. And it's like, that's all okay, but it's not enough.
But anybody can say that they went for the pain, problems, and the solution. Because when you want pizza, you want it hot. You don't want it showing up cold. That's the one thing that I'll still eat cold
for delivery.
Pizza.
I mean, that's the big concern, right?
Right. I want it delivered. I want it hot.
Yep.
I want it fresh. Right. So going back to we haven't going back to it. We're starting with essentially point 1 is it doesn't matter what industry you're in. You have to really clearly understand the pain points of your market, right? How do you do that? And this is the thing that so many people skip over is they don't want to do any research. They don't want to spend any time. So they just come up with something and they go good enough. And it's not good enough, right?
In order it's laziness is what it is.
Laziness.
It happens quite a bit today in all
or impatience.
Yep.
It might not be laziness. It might be impatience, one of the two, right? But you got to ask as many people as you can who currently use a product or service like what you want to put out. What are their feelings around it? What's their pain points? What keeps them up at night? What agitates them? What would be better? Check out your competitors, right? You can use tools like Facebook Ad Library, where you can go to Facebook Ad Library and you can see all the ads of the competitors, and you can see what points they're hitting on, and that will start to give you a better understanding. If you can get access to an email list, you can survey people and just ask them the questions.
Mm-hmm.
What do you like best about it? What do you like least about it? What would you change? What are your pain points, etc.? Yeah, I mean, even resources like Facebook groups, we talk about this all the time, Andrew. You can go and add yourself to a Facebook group in almost any industry at this point and just ask the question.
Dig around,
right? You'll find out very quickly what people like or dislike about any product or service, right? Post it on your own social media, right? What we're trying to find out is where's the pain point in the marketplace, right? Once you clearly define what the pain point is in the marketplace, then you can move on to point number 2, right? And before I move on to point number 2, is there anything you want to add to the research and understanding the market and understanding their pain points and understanding the feel in any product or service that you want to launch?
No, because I think you're right. I think that this begins with what problem I solve, where is the issues, like the pizza thing, the Domino's thing.
Right, because there was a million pizza companies.
They were frustrated with the current solution. They created a new solution, which then became the uniqueness of the company, right? So if you start with problem and not with just research for the sake of research, that's going to lead to the uniqueness, hopefully, of what it is that you have listed. If there's no uniqueness in what it is that you do, that's a different problem we can talk about in a little while. There has to be, listen, you have the wrong product or service if there isn't some element of differentiation and uniqueness, and you have to have that today. So we'll talk about how to get
Domino's, what's great about Domino's is they're constantly surveying their customer base. They're really, really good at it to see what people would like next. They were one of the first to do the curbside, hands-free delivery thing when COVID hit. About 2 years ago, I don't know if you saw their big rollout of commercials where they said, hey, screw delivering it to a house. We'll deliver it wherever you want. And you could start to order and pin on a map where you were. So if you were in a park, if you were at work, if you were at a coffee shop, it didn't matter where, you could order to a pin, right? Like they started to think about the next generation who's like, maybe I don't want, maybe I just want to get it on the side of the road. What's wrong with that?
They're a tech company. Like we talked about tech in the beginning. You're right. They're a tech savvy food company, right? Imagine being a tech savvy food company. That's an extra edge that you have.
And they listen. They listen and some of the ideas that come back are kind of crazy, but then they go, you know what? If we can do it, why not do it, right? And it builds this tribe of fanatical buyers, right? Mm-hmm. So they didn't just come out with one and done. They kept evolving the process, which is key, because a lot of people who listen to this, they already have businesses and they're like, well, we already have our USP, right? But are you talking to your customers and seeing, how they're evolving and what you could do better and potentially roll out and freshen up the USP that you have so that you don't get left behind and somebody doesn't, take you out in your marketplace, right? So number 2 is once you've done the research, figure out how you're going to solve that problem and or create a better experience, right? We, you and I, we ask every new customer that comes in or leaves, what they like or dislike. And for me, the big one that I think people miss is they miss the asking people who leave why they're leaving, right? It's one of the most valuable tools you can have. If somebody cancels a subscription or they stop showing up to your business or, they don't renew your retainer or they buy a product one time and they never come back again. And you're a big proponent of this. You get so angry when you pay money for a service and then nobody follows up with you to ask you how it was, right? If you don't just ask your customers who are buying from you, what they like best about it or what they'd like to change. ask the people who are leaving. And that's super uncomfortable for a lot of people.
Some people just kind of don't want to go there at all, right?
They're like, oh, that's awkward. They don't want to do business with me anymore. I don't want to talk to them.
Understandable, but very
like I get it. It's awkward. But, for me, in a retainer-based business, every time somebody leaves, I want to find out very clearly where, we may have missed the mark or expectations weren't met or whatever. So then I can put systems and processes in place to block that hole, right? Mm-hmm. And now that I've blocked that hole, I have another thing I can add to my selling process, because I can talk against my competitors who might be still making the same mistakes, right? So that's part of my USP, right? And what you want to do is keep refining that process over time to create essentially a bulletproof offer. Because when you come out, you have this USP and you have this idea, but you don't really know how good it is until you put real live humans and bodies through it over time. And if you're constantly asking them for feedback, then it's just going to get better and better and better, right? Third point, and this is an example you use all the time, and I believe in this wholeheartedly, is think Amex experience, right? Think, I wholeheartedly encourage people to not make their USP competing on price. We're cheaper, we cost less, blah, 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 right? Cheaper has no meaning to people. There's no engagement with the soul of your business. There's no loyalty, right? It's a race to the bottom, right? Even if you get a customer making your USP price, they're going to leave when somebody sells it for cheaper. So you've got a really short-term relationship with that client if everything about your USP is about price. And I know that this is something you're really passionate about.
Well, listen, the price thing can work if you're a monster conglomerate of a company and you can drive a boatload of advertising money. Like Amazon kind of competed on price when they launched, but they also competed on efficiency as well. And kind of the everything store, right? They had access to everything was really the big thing, but they could also compete on price because they were, they had the money to do so. Most business owners that listen to the show, they have a limited advertising budget, therefore they cannot compete on price, right? Walmart competes on price because Walmart is Walmart, right? You don't want to be Walmart or Amazon is the point, right?
Here's the thing I want to say about Amazon though. Amazon didn't really break through until they figured out the major pain point of their customers, which was paying for shipping and slow shipping.
That's true. It was a shipping play.
Amazon Prime has 100 million subscribers in the United States alone.
At $100 a year.
Which
shipping.
Is insane.
I know.
Right? And they said, if you're a Prime member, we guarantee shipping to your house. It's the Domino's thing. We guarantee free shipping to your house in 24 hours or less. That was the big USP that took Amazon from being just another e-commerce competitor to an absolute monstrosity and has virtually killed their competition.
Destroyed. And destroyed the local market as well. Like there's a lot of businesses, even pre-COVID, were going down because of Amazon.
Right. Because nobody can beat their infrastructure play, the relationships they created with USPS and UPS and FedEx and warehousing and drivers and like that. Forget it. I'm not.
So Aaron, I'll give you. It's interesting you say that. So we'll talk kind of about the bigger companies first. But another good example of unique selling proposition, not just the words you use, but like you said, the experience that you create. Look at Apple. I use this example a lot. Apple created the store experience for tech before anyone else did, right? There never was an in-store experience with the Microsoft Windows.
It was like the Radio Shacks of the world, which were just a bunch of crap.
Yeah, but that was just equipment, right? It was like
Best Buy.
And they did it. I always talk about this. A lot of people don't know what really, really made Apple take off to become the richest company of the world. People think, oh, it's the music, oh, it's the iPod, oh, it was the iPhone. All true. But the real big move for them was the uniqueness of opening a in-store experience. By the way, during the tech meltdown of 2000, I don't know if it was 2001 or when the NASDAQ completely melted down, all these companies went out of business. And here they are physically implanting beautiful high-end stores in some of the biggest cities in America, now worldwide. And today, by far, the highest grossing per square footage piece of real estate on the planet Earth right now is the Apple stores. There's not even a close second. Coach, not even a close second. Rolex, not even a close second.
Pain point, right?
But that's the thing. The pain point, right, is we know that if we get somebody to buy a Mac, if we know that they can show up at a store and work with a Genius Bar person, they're called, and help that experience to become better, A, there's your uniqueness, and B, they'll probably buy a whole heck of a lot more stuff when they're in there. Everybody was like, they are nuts. The world is ending. The NASDAQ is at 200, maybe not 200, but right. The NASDAQ is done. Tech is done. All these startup companies are done. And here's Apple putting these beautiful stores around the world, making a unique experience when nobody else had it. Now, Microsoft has tried. They have a couple little stores in Seattle that they tried. Amazon is testing it now, the in-store experience, but it's not taken off. Nothing is sticking like the Apple in-store experience is right now in tech. Now, that's a unique selling proposition from an experience standpoint, not from a languaging standpoint.
Well, and people want tech, but everyone's afraid of not understanding tech, not being a techie person, right. Looking stupid.
They get intimidated.
They get intimidated,
yeah,
right? And what they created was this experience of not only will we serve you, we want to serve you. Come on in, let's play with this.
You just bought a Mac. Come on in.
Come on in, right? And all of a sudden, everyone's like, "Oh, I don't feel dumb going in and asking my question about how I set up my email or what, whatever."
Or like, Dell Computer was the big player when I was coming up in tech, and they were known for having really good telephone customer service. That was their thing. Yep. Like Dell was like an e-commerce company. It was computers shipped to you, kind of you make them online, they would ship them, but they had great tech support. But then eventually it became so tough to get a hold of them, and it was long wait times, and they were worldwide, and it was a great experience at the time, pre-Apple Store experience. By the way, my phone there we are, by the way. Isn't that cool? Who are those guys on there? Now that's technology. Anyways, this phone, I dropped it, and the screen went blank on me the other day. And I went right to the Apple Store on an appointment. Genius Bar, as always, amazing experience. One of my favorite companies in the world is Apple. Great experience, brand new phone, got it all synced back the way it was supposed to with the apps, no fee to do it, in-person experience. There's one close to me. So, all that matters. That uniqueness is like that. I would never want to go use a Samsung device because I love having my access to your face. I love having my access to the physical store and the people who are there and are always so helpful. They're really well-trained people, the Genius Bar people, and good people, nice people. And
let me circle back to what I first said on this point. Does Apple compete on price?
100% no. 0
chance. No. Nope.
No way.
Every time I buy an Apple product, one, I'm stoked to get it because it's always amazing, and two, I'm like, God damn, that's expensive. But I'm going to pay it because the look, the feel, the experience, the whatever. Like, there's 0 chance.
Have you ever seen them running a sale?
Not that I can think of.
Not really. Once in a blue moon, they might have a promotion going on with a new computer or a new phone coming up, but not sales. Like,
no,
you look at brand, like we talk about these top tier brands, man. You look at Apple. I was in the Rolex store the other day looking at watches. Guy was like, there's nothing happening on price. We don't have them for 3 months, number one. There's nothing happening on price, and there's never going to be a promotion. Mercedes, cars always run promotions a little bit here and there, but not really at the high end. Mercedes,
Lexus, it might be like extended financing options maybe, but the
they're
price
not hacking price. Apple, Rolex, Mercedes, you look at some of these big brands, these are all the big ones out there. And you might be thinking to yourself, oh my God, I'm nowhere near being one of those brands. But you can take from those brands, right? The best businesses take from the big and the small. Right? They look at both sides. They look at the extremes. They look at all the way to the left, all the way to the right. So Apple, oh my gosh, I could never do that. They have $1 billion of cash in the bank. And then you look at a small business, maybe in your local neighborhood, that is a restaurant, let's say, that is just knocking the cover off the ball because they're doing something different at the local brick and mortar level. And you figure out, how can I somehow take elements from the big and the small? Because and this is a visibility thing, right? Like, as entrepreneurs, you have to have hyper awareness, I feel. The best entrepreneurs and business owners and sales professionals are always on the lookout. They're always
and be willing to adapt.
Yeah, they're always researching. How can I just take a little bit here and a little bit here and a little bit here and make it my own? That's what a great entrepreneur. Now, big businesses have trouble doing that. They're not as agile. They're not as quick on their feet as the small, agile entrepreneur who can start to take bits and pieces and put them together and make their own unique selling proposition. That's what I find amongst really great business owners is they adapt well, like you said. And they're always pulling the best from not only the little guys, but from the big guys and the guys in the middle as well. They might take a playbook from Amazon. They might take a piece of the playbook from Apple, and they might take a piece of the playbook from a local business across the street. and somehow figure out a way to nail their unique selling proposition. That's what I find from
Agreed.
the greatest small to medium-sized businesses that we mostly work with and see.
Absolutely. Let's go into point number 4, because we started a little bit late and we want to still end on time today. There's an old quote, facts tell, stories sell, right? Again, going back to how we started this in the beginning, there's almost no unique, there's very little unique products or services that are launching these days. There might be adaptations, but there's very few that are like, wow, I've never seen anything like that, right? What's unique is how you do things. What's unique is how you communicate to people, right? What's unique is how you look, how your business looks, and how your customer feels when they interact with your product or service, right? I quote Start With Why from Simon Sinek all the time, right? When you tell people what your product does, it's cerebrum and it's facts and figures, right? But when you talk about the why, the story, the motivation, the impact, all those types of things, those are all emotional things. Those are all limbic system things. And that's actually where people make the buying decision. You know, they have that gut feeling,
Yep.
Go with your product or service, right? And one of the greatest ways to do that is to tell stories, right? When you come out and you just say, here's our photocopier. It's super fast. You know, it's indestructible. It's going to last 50 years and whatever. That's all
Features.
Facts. It's just features, right? It's features and benefits, right? But when you come out and you say, you know, I've been in this space forever. I've been doing 37 copies a day, you know, for 40 years. And I got tired of the thing jamming up and I'm always having to pull it out. And then the boss is, you know, he's on my neck and blah, 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 blah. And I don't like how much paper is being wasted in the environment and blah, 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 blah. So we came out with this brand new copier that has no paper and magically floats through the air to your phone or whatever, you know, all of a sudden somebody's like engaged because they can put themselves in your shoes, in your pain point, and they can see themselves in you, right? So the better you get at storytelling around your product or service.
And add that personality like you just did.
That personality, right? I literally just had this conversation with the guys last night. Andrew, you would laugh. They're a financial education company. They're like, we don't want to have a face on this thing. We don't, you know, but we just want to lead with the brand. Blah, blah, blah. I said, guys, like,
you can,
financial education is boring. Like, I'm looking at the site. There's no who we are. There's no why we created it. There's no public figure attached to it. And the funny thing is, in the same sentence, the guy goes, you know, we want to be like a Tim Ferriss, right? And I'm like, Tim Ferriss is the exact opposite of this.
He's a heavy promoter. I mean, that's why he's so successful, because he's a massive promoter. How are you going to not promote your stuff and let it sit behind a logo, right?
Right. I said, look, if you just want to pound like facts and figures nonstop, you'll get customers, but your cost per acquisition will be exponentially higher. So you better have a long road of capital set aside until you become quote unquote known.
Right.
Right. And the other way is obviously to engage at a personal level with your ideal customer, be telling stories, be telling your unique philosophies, your origin story, all those kind of things. And that's going to engage at an emotional level, and they're more likely to buy. So if you can get good at telling the story of why you did things different, what motivated you to create it, what motivated you to make that change.
What you found, what you overcame. Right?
Exactly. Right? Then people who believe what you believe are going to be very attracted to what you're offering.
And by the way, that's another element of uniqueness, right? Sometimes unique selling proposition is pretty difficult to find when it's just language. So we talked about it being language, Domino's example. We talked about it being experience, Apple example. And now we're talking about it being personality-driven, people example, because the best opportunity you have for being unique and standing out is personalizing and humanizing what it is that you do. Because people buy from people, not big companies. People trust people more than they trust logos and brands. And if you can differentiate with who you are and what you found and your presence, and like you said, the example before, I was dealing with this and I overcame it and I went off and created this. You see some of those best brands that get Shark Tank money, they're always, the person is very much involved in the uniqueness of it. And usually it's the person who found something, they went on this journey, and now they're like, the thing, like one of my favorite,
because they had pain and they wanted to solve it.
There you go. So one of my, I think my all-time favorite podcast, besides this one at this time, is in the health and wellness space. Actually, I think the number one rated podcast today is Dave Asprey's Bulletproof Radio podcast.
Is he number one now? Good for him.
It's close to. It's top 5 in the world, right? I love his brand. I love his philosophies. I'm in so alignment with him. But his whole brand, I mean, if you know what Bulletproof coffee is, it's good quality coffee. It's grass-fed butter and a little MCT oil. And what it does for the brain and the focus level, you've heard me talk about this a million times. It's just outstanding. It's almost like a drug, but it's not. But he found this like in his travels to India, trying to find himself, trying to find out, what makes the Western world different from the Eastern world. Went on like this massive journey biohacking his own body. And then came back with all this data, research, information from experimenting on himself, a lot of science behind it as well, and created a brand around it. Now, how sticky is that story versus just a nutrition company or just a podcast about wellness? Like, everybody knows the story of like how Bulletproof, that concoction was created. And it went on to create a massive brand. I mean, the books, the information, the nutrition, the wellness. But again, what was unique about it? It was the experience converted to story, humanized and personalized. He's the brand. Bulletproof coffee or Bulletproof nutritional supplements, it's just another brand.
But here's the thing.
His story intertwined, it's not just another brand, right?
A lot of people say, well, I don't want to build a brand around myself because then I can't sell it. The reality is you either got to build a brand around nobody and spend a ton of money and decades until it's recognized.
I know.
Right? Or you build a brand around a story and somebody, and you could be hugely profitable within 2 to 3 years. And guess what? 5, 6, 7 years later, the brand itself is still going to be known. I ordered a Bulletproof coffee the other day from the restaurant in Cayman.
They had it it was actually labeled as that, or wow.
It was called Bulletproof Coffee, right? Now, if he just come out with a brand called Bulletproof Coffee and he put it into the marketplace,
wouldn't have meant much.
Wouldn't mean nothing.
Because people are talking about it. There's a human behind it. And by the way, now his stuff is on the shelves of Whole Foods. So you see how like a lot of people want to avoid the personal experience. That we talk about this a lot, humanizing and personalizing the experience. A lot of people want to avoid that because, like you said, how would I sell it? But the time, right? The time it would take to get you to be able to sell it would be a fraction of that if you humanized it like Dave did. And now all of a sudden he could step away from it. The brand could stand alone. So it's almost like people have it backwards, like you said, right? Don't think about, well, I don't want to be a promoter or be the face of this thing because what if I sell it one day? Well, what if you don't?
Right. Why are you worried about something that's not even remotely close to happening anytime soon?
It's a big hypothetical. Exactly right. And that sometimes is a big roadblock for business owners, sales professionals, entrepreneurs, is when you want to stay out of the public eye and you want to not be a promoter and you're afraid of criticism and all that. That's just a decision. That's all fine and well, but just know that you're probably going to slow things down considerably.
In my experience, absolutely. I mean, we look at, our software Pipeline Pro, we're all over the place in that thing, sharing how we use it with our own experiences and how we leverage it and, to 10x our own sales and efficiency with all of our leads and all that kind of stuff. I see so many softwares out there in the marketplace saying, I don't want to put my name on anything. I just want this to stand on its own. And cool. The reason why people are doing this is because I want to exit, right? Why are you worried about exit? An exit's like 7 to 8 years away, and your chance of actually being successful enough to exit or to go IPO or whatever it is that's in your mind is like 1 in 1,000, 10,000.
And you need an absolute fortune of an advertising and branding budget to get there if you're not willing to play the promotion game.
Right? Why, instead of worrying about that, why don't you worry about serving your customers at the highest level first? Right? Why don't you worry about getting in the trenches and finding out what they want and how you can serve them and how you can make it better, and consequently building something that's really freaking good that down the line, if you want to exit it or you can go public, you can.
Yeah.
What are you looking that far in the future for? You don't even have anything yet.
Yeah, without proof of concept, it's not really a smart statement.
No, it's insane how many people are like, I'm not doing that because, we want to go public.
But a lot of times it's fear, right? We're talking unique selling proposition. And, we've given, I think, 3 really good examples of the verbiage that you use, the experience that you can create, and the way you personalize it. makes it, you could somehow blend all three of them in. That would be magical, right?
Absolutely.
Maybe it's just wording. Maybe it's the experience. Maybe it's the personality. Maybe it's all three. My God, if it's all three, listen, for Apple, it was Steve Jobs as the face of it. People loved him at one point. It was the uniqueness
Apple
of the
was Steve Jobs. Remember when he went away and the thing just fell off a cliff?
And what about when they took him out and the company tanked? They brought the CEO of Pepsi in. I think his name was Scully.
He wasn't a CEO. I don't think he was the CEO. I think he was a VP.
Yeah, he came in and took over. This guy Scully from Pepsi, right?
Yeah,
it was
absolutely.
like, oh my God, we're like losing our shirts. And they like begged to bring him back. And he's like, yeah, I'll come back. It's on my terms, my company. Took the company, to the stratosphere before he passed away.
After he had already built Pixar up in that time while he was gone.
Yeah. So, I mean, there was also a guy there though. So, that's an interesting corporate example where that was an out front and center heavy promoter type CEO. You don't see that a lot today.
People say, I don't want to be the face of the brand. I'm like, really? Because Steve Jobs and the last time I checked, Tesla are doing pretty good.
Tesla with Musk is another great example. Bill Gates with Microsoft back in the day, he was front and center. That was another great example.
Absolutely.
Right. So there's
but you probably couldn't
CEOs.
sell those companies. Probably couldn't sell those companies or exit them because they've got a face associated with it, right?
The chances are, though, the companies would never even get to an exit conversation without the faces leading it. That's the thing.
Right. That's my point.
Yeah.
Right. Like even yesterday when I was talking about these guys I was talking with, they're competitors, right? I was talking about Mind Valley. I'm like, Mind Valley's CEO is on every one of their videos. What are you talking about? He's talking about like all the different programs they have and the experience. And like, I mean, you're telling me that Mind Valley couldn't be sold? Mind Valley's worth like $10 billion right now.
Yep. So the takeaway here, buddy, is I'll let you do the takeaway, but I think the most important thing I want to nail home again is you got sort of three buckets to work in, right? You create unique selling proposition by the languaging and the messaging that you use. It's USP, it's unique selling proposition, differentiation. You do it through experience. Right? I think live events is a big one, right? This is coming back now. Live events will be a great way to differentiate. The best businesses in the world, by the way, also put on the best events in the world, whether it be workshops, events, sessions, whatever
launches.
Launches, things like that. They're not just hiding behind a brand or the internet or the website. They're actually getting live with people, and that's coming back again now, which is amazing. And then obviously the other part is just not being afraid to get out front. The uniqueness is you. The uniqueness is you being out there and you having overcome something and sharing that and people resonating with that and feeling like there's transparency and feeling like, hey, I can relate to this. This person who runs this and is the face of this, I can relate to that, and they're a great leader and they communicate well. And that makes it unique, right? Sometimes people will stick with companies, by the way, because of the leader. Like there's people that will buy Tesla and never not buy another car because they love Musk.
Do you know how many people love Virgin because of Richard Branson?
There's another great example.
Love him.
And they could all be criticized.
When everything hit the fan in COVID, his staff, because you got to understand, Richard Branson probably took the worst hit of any billionaire in COVID, right?
He was building a couple new brands at the time.
All chips in tourism, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cruise ships, planes, hotels, just wiped out, right? And his staff said, we'd be willing to get paid zero for 3 months. They offered this to him just because we love the Virgin community and Richard Branson so much. Like, that's crazy, right? But it goes back to like the feel, right? The feel of the brand, right? And I just want to leave it with this last point before we wrap up today. Once you've defined this and once you've got clear on it and you've done your research and you put it in place and you've tested it and it's working and it feels good, right? Make sure you carry through this USP to all forms of your marketing. And people forget, they think that, oh, that's marketing, but that's not marketing. Every interaction you have with a customer is marketing, right? Your emails, your SMS, your Zoom, your websites, your ads, your customer service, your live interactions, your Genius Bar, your everything. This has to be carried through in every piece of your communication because that consistency builds credibility.
I would agree. Your Genius Bar. Find your the takeaway today, find your Genius Bar. When you
find your 30 minutes hot and fresh.
And if you can get just hot, fresh pizza delivered in 30 minutes or less. But that wording, again, those are your pillars to work with. And if you don't have anything going on in those three areas, then that's obviously a reason why. Maybe there's struggle or maybe there's slowness. And this is something that you need to come back to once in a while. Sometimes a unique selling proposition is like branding. It needs to be freshened up, right? You've seen companies do complete brand makeovers, and they do complete language makeovers too, right? They stand for something different now, and they show up a little bit differently. And sometimes it's a hit, sometimes it isn't. I've seen these makeovers completely fail, and I've seen some take a company to the next level.
Absolutely.
So find your unique selling proposition. That's the takeaway for today. Hope you enjoyed this one. I'm Andrew. That's Aaron. We will see you on the next episode of Sales Velocity TV and or radio. Make sure you download the podcast, listen to it on the go as well, and we'll see you next time.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Sales Velocity TV is powered by Pipeline Pro, the ultimate all-in-one sales pipeline management and marketing automation platform that makes all others obsolete. And we can prove it. Take a tour at gopipelinepro.com. See you on the next episode.